The line woke me up at 2 this morning, and I...
All right, good evening.
played-
5 o'clock, 5:03, and I will now call to order the local planning committee's meeting on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. And you all have your agendas in front of you.
Yes, thank you.
And our first agenda item is to review and approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was February 7th, 2023. So do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bernadette will second. Garrett. And is there any discussion on the minutes, the approval of such?
We're good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous vote. Our second agenda item is to get an update on the RFP. I have spoken to two people today, and if Mr. Halkiotis comes tonight, he was supposed to be here. He told me he would be here. We might be able to get a little more clarity from Mr. Halkiotis, but nonetheless, speaking to two people today, I was informed that the RFP has been finalized, and I was told it has become live.
Yep.
Now, I was also told that it may have gone live. So we're not quite sure yet, and I don't know which way we'd want to bet, but I would say that we are making progress in the direction of our RFP becoming live. And good afternoon. And there was one piece in an email that came to me by way of Joyce, from Megan, our assistant TA. And there were two highlighted issues that I would like some clarity on. There was a request to change these two highlighted issues. And unfortunately, I didn't get any more information on that. I don't know what they were, what they are, and I don't know what changed, if anything. The email did read something to the effect of, we want to make sure that these changes are in line with the local planning committee's, what they want to see happen. So I'm confident that the changes that were made, if they were made, would be in the best interest of this local planning committee and the road we've been on so far.
Cool.
If Mr. Halkiotis joins us tonight, then I'm sure he'll be able to answer exactly what changes were made.
And I assume...
Yes, please.
I assume they'll send it to each of us at some point, or...
You can,
Please.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, sorry. I was at the Board of Selectmen's meeting last night. I stayed on until it got to that, but all they had it up as is request for proposal for consultant, an update on several RFPs. But it's in the agenda packet from last night, if you want to look
I
at
see,
it
to look at it.
yourself. It's a long
was there any action?
thing. They did not have it listed as taking a vote or anything, and I'm trying to remember.
So maybe no vote was needed.
I don't think so, yeah. But then that means, and it was stamped, in the packet, I believe it's stamped January 23rd.
Oh,
But they didn't have it down as taking a vote or anything. They just directed the town administrator at the time to go ahead.
Right.
So it sounds like it's good.
But if you're talking to people since last night,
Yes.
yeah, I don't know,
I believe, as you said, Bernadette, it's been approved,
yeah.
and now we're just waiting to find out exactly where it sits
Yeah.
at
So if you
present.
want some light reading tonight,
Yeah.
the moon's keeping you awake, it's long enough.
Please.
The only update that I was made aware of was that they have included the, the open space plan and the housing production plan as part of the consultant's work to be standalone products and to be incorporated into our plan.
That'd be fantastic.
Apparently, that's not business as usual, so we're gonna find out if the consultant, if balk at it or not, but we'll put it out there and
Give it
see
a
what
shot.
happens.
Sure.
So that, I don't know if there was anything else. That's the only part I heard.
Okay. Anybody else have any?
We had asked for that last month,
Yes,
so hopefully.
yes. Anyone else have any questions, comments about the RFP?
No, I guess if Paul gets here, maybe we can get him to clarify some of the
Yes.
ambiguities.
Yes, and I'm sorry I don't have more information, but I was told that about a month to a month and a half from now, the consultant should be landed, is what I'm understanding.
Okay.
So moving on to agenda items C and D, I'm going to lump these together, give you a little background on why we are blessed and very happy to have Brianna Nickerson here. And can you unmute, Brianna? Have you unmuted?
Oh, here he is.
Yep, okay.
Okay, we can hear you, but
Can you
now
hear me?
but now I need you to mute again because I have a question for the gentleman who just came in. How you doing,
Sure.
Mr. Halkiotis? Great to see you. Thanks for coming. We just went over where the RFP resides right now. And the information I received today, which I just gave to the committee here, was that the RFP has been approved and it may or may not have gone live. So hopefully you can shed some light on that for us, please.
Sorry, it's a few minutes late.
And would you mind coming, only because we have a couple people remote, and it would be helpful. Thank you. Oh, I'm
Were
so,
there copies of the RFP on the table when you got here?
no,
All right, so
that's okay. We all read it last night 3 times.
No,
it was supposed to be put on the table, so
Paul,
I thought they were.
I told them it was in the agenda packet from the Board of Selectmen last night. That's why I stayed on at the meeting, but
All right, so I did have copies for you, and I had a cover memo that explained where we're at, and before we're done, I'll try to find those. Shayla was supposed to put them on the table out there. So I received word earlier this week that the Assistant Town Administrator has reviewed and approved the RFP. She asked me to make the hyperlinks at the end of it live so that if somebody's reading this electronically and they clicked on the zoning bylaw, it would link them to that. So I did that. I also had to update the schedule. So based on the fact that it took much longer to get this approved by the front office, we had to move the schedule back. So the memo that I did for you, that you didn't get, has the updated schedule. So to answer your question, it is not live yet.
Okay.
The selectmen, I hope, voted to approve it last night.
they didn't take a vote. They just directed Joe to get it going.
Okay, so that leaves the next step going forward is to send a copy to the state to be advertised in the Central Register and to Cape Cod Chronicle to be a legal ad put in the paper. That will take place next week. So there's advertising deadlines of when we have to send a legal notice to the paper, and that's on Friday or Monday at the latest, so we missed this week. We will get that in next week. I'll work with Megan to take care of that. Most of what goes on in selecting the consulting firm going forward for about the next month is administrative things that we'll take care of here at Town Hall. The way we set up the selection process is that there would be a selection team that consists of the chairman of the planning board, the town administrator, the chairman of this committee, myself, and a member of this committee. You guys have to decide which one of you would like to participate in the selection team. But the good news is that we are also planning to interview the finalists. And I think the way we have it set up is that the whole committee will interview the finalist firms, and then you all will vote to select the consultant. So initially, only the chairman and one of you will be involved with narrowing the list down. But when it comes to selecting from the finalists, the committee will get to decide what consultant you want to hire. I'm not anticipating a lot of proposals, and that's based on what I've seen over the last couple of years from some other towns that went out to bid. The town of Walpole, I think, got 2 proposals a couple of years ago. And the reality of it is, this is not the kind of work that these consultants make a lot of money. And they will ultimately end up probably doing more work for us than they had anticipated when they bid on it. So I'm not expecting to get 10 proposals in. I think we'd be doing great if we get 4 or 5. And it's likely we might just get a few. But if we get a few good firms, then, you know, we'll be able to move forward with hiring a consultant. So that's where we are. We're just about ready to advertise. And I think we're all chomping at the bit, waiting to move forward to the next phase of this. I know you've been meeting for months, leading up to, you know, let's hire a consultant and get going. So we're now at the point where we're ready to do that.
When do they have to submit their proposals, Paul?
So the deadline for, we're targeted to release the RFP on the 15th.
April 13th? Is it- am I
March
looking at that right?
15th. The ad should appear in the Central Register on that date, and the ad will appear in the Cape Cod Chronicle on March 16th. We're scheduled to have a pre-bid meeting at 10 a.m. in this room on March 27th. We have a time period for the consultants to ask questions. And it's important how this is handled, because we need to make sure that the questions are presented to us in writing. And then we need to let any of the bidders see the answer to the question. And so I'll be working with the IT department. I don't know, this is my first time out with this, to see how the town sets these things up. But usually when a consulting firm wants to get a copy of the RFP, they have to go to the town's website, they have to give their contact information, and then they can get a copy of the RFP. This enables us to communicate back and forth with all the firms if there's something that needs to be corrected, or if there's the case of like a question, we need to be able to provide the answers to all of the firms so that they're all playing on a level playing field. So the deadline for questions is on March 31st, and the deadlines for the answers is on April 6th. And this is all in this memo that I intended for you to all have on your table when you got here, so we'll get that to you before you leave. And the deadline for submitting the proposals is on April 13th at 3 p.m. From there, we enter into the review process. Gives us about a week or so to review the proposals. And on the 25th of April, the selection team will create a short list of firms. We'll notify them the following day on April 26th. And then at our regular LCPC meeting on May 2nd, we will conduct some interviews. And what is hoped for, the game plan is there'll be a decision at that evening, and we will then notify the firm that we want to select the following day. And then we've got about a week to get a contract worked out, and hopefully a contract signed by the selectmen on May 15th. And then at our regular scheduled meeting on June 6th would be the kickoff meeting with all of you and the consulting firm. So it does take a little while to get through this process, but the dates in here, we give the consultants about a month from when they can download a copy of the RFP to when the proposals are due. And, you know, these are gonna be, there'll be some information that they have to put together. in their proposal, and so that's why we want to give them a little bit of time to figure all that out and present it in their proposal.
Are these optimistic dates? Are they, or is this?
Yeah,
is the
these,
process
these are a little
realistic?
optimistic, and the reason why we had to update the whole project schedule, because it was optimistic on how quickly the front office would get this reviewed and approved. But I think it's all doable.
Sounds like they've done that, so it sounds like those should be real dates.
Yeah, so these, I think, are pretty
These
pretty
are
firm
attainable,
dates that we
yeah.
can, the ball will be in our court. Once they, we give them a month to put together a proposal, and then the ball's in our court to follow the schedule of reviewing them within a week and bringing them in for the interviews.
Because Paul, you had lined some dates up a while ago. When I want to say it might have been the beginning of January.
Yep.
And are there things that we need to reline back up again?
So this is what I'm saying. So this was copy and pasted from the RFP.
Right.
And when Megan Eldridge sent it back to me, saying it looks good, and she didn't have to make any edits. So basically what you all received as a draft was approved without any further edits. So I had to update the schedule
No, I
accordingly.
guess what I meant was, I thought you had laid out some project planning that was taking, beyond the RFP. It was like work that was into the LCP activities. Do we need to now start to, do we wait for the consultant to get here and start to lay those activities in? Or are there things that we can start to do in preparation for the 5th of June? I'm just wondering what we
It's a-
do waiting
Sure.
for the consultant.
And that's a really great point, Brian, and I'll say that I've invited two people here tonight to begin the process for us to learn more about what's in front of us, to decide whether or not certain things fit into the purview of what we're supposed to be charged with. So I think this committee has done a fantastic job so far working independently without a consultant. I think we've gotten to know each other, and I think we understand where we're going. Paul's been a huge help, and I think things are kind of lining up pretty well for us. And once that consultant lands, then we should have more to offer the consultant as a committee. Bernadette, please.
Just one thing, because I'm looking at it from last night's packet, and May 2nd kind of popped up in my head. That's the second night of town meeting, and we will definitely have a second night of town meeting this year. So that date, as the shortlisted firms interviewed, obviously when you're not looking for many firms and then shortlisting it, is that something that you anticipate that would be something could be done that day, earlier in the day? You know, it sounds like it could be a big job, and that day
That involves all.
It's a big day.
Involves all of us, right?
sounds like, yeah.
That May 2nd.
Because I had brought up at the last, one of the last meetings too,
Wait
that
a week.
our usual meeting was scheduled for that night, and that's town meeting, and we're not gonna meet that night.
So we're gonna need to push that back.
Yeah.
Because I'll be presenting zoning articles that night, and probably we can't have a meeting
Or
that
even
conflicts
that
with town
day
meeting.
is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so we'll probably have to,
So you can
did you
make a change.
reschedule that meeting
Sure.
already? Did you reschedule it?
I don't think we did. I know
No.
I mentioned it to Joyce. I'm not sure if we
No.
actually, I think we just made a note of the fact that we would not be able to meet on the night of May 2nd.
Okay.
Is there
because-
anyone who cannot meet the following Tuesday?
It's fine, the 9th. It's fine with me.
Probably,
And I think at our next meeting, we can
Might not be able to be.
solidify that
that's
date.
what, we need to,
Better for me.
yeah, we need to reset
I
that date.
would assume it would be the next Tuesday, the
Yeah.
following Tuesday in
But
May.
we'll need to.
That allows for a
Paul?
little slippage if it happens.
Regarding the question about the schedule going forward after the consultant's on board. So one of the requirements of the RFP is for them to give us a schedule. So when we get the proposals, we'll see, and that's actually, may factor into who gets the job. If one consultant has this strung on for 3 years because they've already got other contracts and work that they're doing, that's less desirable than a consulting firm that's ready to go and can move us forward faster. So we'll wait and see what they give us.
Fantastic.
I've got a question.
Sure, Dave.
Paul, you said that in your schedule, there's gonna be an on-site pre-meeting. Do you expect someone from here to be part of that? Because that's
I
before
think
our
it-
next meeting.
Yeah, so I think it would be a good idea to have at least one,
I do too.
and I think anybody that's interested in being at that meeting can certainly attend. It'll be a meeting in the daytime, and it's scheduled as a
March
pre-bid
27th.
at 10 on the 27th, yeah.
10 a.m.
Yeah.
Paul, I have a question. In an email that I received, I read that there were 2 highlighted areas for you to either correct or update. That came by way of Megan to Joyce.
Yep.
Do you know, I mean, were there 2 changes that were made? And if so, could you just let us know what they were, please?
So those were the changes that I just went over. One was to update the schedule,
Timeline?
and the other was the hyperlinks.
Perfect. That's it?
And
minor.
there were a couple of things that we wanted to include as hyperlinks, but they weren't on the website. And so we will circle back for those later. One was the subdivision rules and regulations was pulled off the website, and I need to get that loaded back up. And then there was one other document. So I took care of that.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding specifically the RFP for Mr. Halkiotis? Great.
Let me go find your copies, and I'll be right back.
That would be fantastic.
Thanks for getting all that done.
Don't hurry with that foot. You can take your time.
It's 10 o'clock in the morning on the 27th of March.
Okay,
This here just,
moving on to Agenda C and D.
I assume so.
As I was saying prior to Mr. Halkiotis showing up, I've invited 2 people here to share some information for our committee to think about, digest, and really get a feel for whether or not, or what, if any, of what our 2 esteemed guests here are going to talk about fits into the purview of our local. Time to wake up, Jim? If it fits into the local, the local comprehensive plan, what parts of it? I mean, we've got Brianna Nickerson here, and are you unmuted now, Brianna?
I am now, yep.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. I know it's a big deal, and it doesn't go unnoticed that you're spending some time with us tonight. And I also heard that there was a wedding at some point. You
Yes.
sneaky little thing.
A long overdue 10-year waiting span, but yes, we finally got married.
Well, is it Brianna
Thank you.
Nickerson still?
What?
Do we have a name change?
We do. It'll be Brianna Powell. Well, it is Brianna Powell now, yes.
It is Brianna Powell. Well, welcome to
yeah.
Brianna Powell, our affordable housing advocate. And why I wanted you to be here, Brianna, is I have a couple of thoughts on this. The first was when you spoke out at the housing huddle, I really was moved by what you had to say. You're a local person. You've done great things here. I know your whole family. And I want you to inform our committee here of where you see the affordable housing advocate taking affordable housing. So if you don't mind, just maybe 15 minutes, give us a brief overview of where you think we're going to move and what we're going to do.
Sure, yeah. I don't know if I'll have 15 minutes for you, but I'll do
Well,
my
you
best.
give us what you can, please.
Yeah. So I wanted to start by just letting you know it's actually just housing advocate. I'm not tied to just affordable housing, though that is one of my major focuses.
Great. Thank you.
I'm housing in general, all housing. So that's sorry, I can only see myself on the screen. It's a little distracting, but so yeah, I'm all housing, everything housing, as affordable market rate in between. So previously I was a HUD certified housing counselor for HAC, Housing Assistance Corporation, and learned a lot about housing there and different programs. Currently I'm working towards being a liaison for better communication between the Housing Authority, Housing Committee, and the Affordable Housing Trust Committee. I don't, however, I think that I can build a stronger communication between the three to make some more forward movement in the housing aspect. Another thing I'm working on is providing education to the residents of the town, and that could be something like a housing fair. I'm currently working on a home buyer seminar that should be available to folks this spring virtually. We're going to do it virtually, then we're going to move on and see what the want is, I guess, if it's easier for people to do virtual or they'd rather be in person. And I'm also meeting with other towns and my counterpart in other towns to learn about what they're doing and what programs they have for housing so that we can take what fits for Harwich and kind of build programs here. So I would say the long-term goal is to have a vast variety of housing programs and education opportunities. Sorry, the kickback is, when you hear yourself on the phone and you're like, oh, cringe. That's how I'm feeling right now. But anyways, so a vast variety of opportunities and educational programs spanning from rentals to home ownership and for all income ranges.
Fantastic, and I'm going to open it up to the committee here, if anybody has any specific questions for Brianna. Anybody want to chime in?
Brianna, it's Barbara Nickerson. So do you envision at some point after the dust settles with everything going on, the huddles, and we start moving forward, of any kind of maintaining some sort of a list for housing for people that come into town, looking for housing, be it short-term, long-term, rental, home buyer, et cetera, et cetera?
Yep, so that is one of the things I've actually been trying to work on currently. It's really challenging because there's not much inventory. Collecting that open inventory has been a bit of a challenge. I've reached out on a few platforms to see if there is anyone who wanted to add their rentals, and there hasn't been much feedback. I do know of some programs for homeownership, but nothing that's currently available in Harwich. But that is something I'm interested in having long term.
Great. Anybody else? Yes, please, Margot.
I may be putting you on the spot here, and also simultaneously revealing my own ignorance, but can you tell me what the difference is in the roles between the Housing Committee and the Housing Trust?
I think the main difference is that the Affordable Housing Trust has the trust document that they're tied to, so they can focus on housing for 80% AMI and lower, and they have the funds and the availability financially to create housing, to fund programs, and the committee should really, they're kind of rebuilding. They haven't met in person for a very long time, so we're going to go over at the next meeting on the 16th to kind of figure out what they will be doing and focusing on more specifically. So maybe I could give you an updated answer on that once I have a more clear idea. I think once everyone has a more clear idea.
Yeah, Brianna, the Housing Trust is also funded by the town, is that correct?
Yes.
The town puts money into the Affordable Housing Trust yearly, annually?
Yep.
Okay.
The CPC puts money in,
CPC, sure.
and I know they can get cell tower funds.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it's funded by the town.
Excellent. Jim?
Yes, I was wondering if you're familiar with what's going on in Chatham. It was in the Chronicle last week about, a new way of doing affordable housing in more dense ways, and just any reactions to that type of idea.
I haven't seen that, but if you want to forward it to me, I can look at it and let you know my thoughts on that as well. Okay. I did meet with Chatham recently, and they have this great program that I'm going to try to bring here. Essentially, it's a rental program where a town owns a house. So they have the Marconi houses. There's 5 of them, but there's a rental program where the tenants would be in for 5 years. They pay $1,600 a month. And at the end of the 5 years, they're given back half of what they paid, which was held in an escrow account for a down payment on a house. So that's something that Joe and I met about and are hoping to implement at some point soon.
Fantastic. Paul, did you have something you wanted to?
To
Say?
add to what Brianna said in response to Margot's question, the Affordable Housing Trust is a committee that's authorized by statute. So there was a state law that says that communities could create affordable housing trusts. So what they can do is defined in that law. We did get the charge for the housing committee because frankly, Brianna and I asked ourselves the same question of what's the housing committee doing and what's the Affordable Housing Trust doing, and is there overlap, is there coordination? And what she indicated, from what we could tell, they hadn't met in a while, and we had a meeting with them a few weeks ago, and we asked them about their charge, and I don't think that they were really clear on it, so Brianna was able to get copies of their charge and providing that to them for their next meeting. And that's going to set the stage for some discussion to see if we can clearly get the housing committee focused on certain things that are not things that are overlapping and duplicative with what the Affordable Housing Trust is doing.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
So in layman's, is it essentially the trust holds the bank account and the committee sets the agenda and the plan?
So the trust has some broad powers that are listed in the statute in their ability to buy and sell real estate and things like that. In order to sell or lease real estate, I think they still have to comply with the state's Uniform Procurement Act, Chapter 30B. And so that was a question that had come up in relation to some of the land that the trust owns, and what's the process going forward to do something with that property. So we can give you guys copies of the housing committee's charge and give you information on the trust, and then you can see what the difference is between their roles and what they have authority to do and don't have authority to do.
That'd be great. Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the significant difference, there are 3, quote, housing organizations in Harwich. One's the Housing Authority, which is actually an agency of the state, and it administers state and federal funding for housing for, I believe it's providing housing for those under 60% of the median area income. The Housing Trust is also, in many ways, an independent organization at this point. It, separate from the town, can buy and sell real estate, contract for building of housing, and can, I believe, also carry a mortgage, which the town can't. And the Housing Committee, its roots go way back to the late 1990s, and it was the first committee to provide advice to the town meeting and the Board of Selectmen on what the town should be doing. And there's several projects around town that came out of the fruition of their work. The Gums Way project. Actually, the concept of putting housing at the West Harwich School was one of their early projects. Fell apart in the implementation, but I mean, they'd done a lot of things, and they were also the body that put together the first town housing plans.
Great. Anybody else for Brianna? So Brianna, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sure.
Brianna, this is Brian Shell. This might be a little off kilter, this question, but are you, in your role as an advocate, are you working with non-residents? You're working with anybody who's looking to move into town?
I mean, currently, I focus mainly on residents. I haven't had too much conversation with people looking for housing at this point. I did have office hours set up for anyone who needed assistance with, rent arrears or mortgage arrears, but it wasn't a very, we'll go back to those later because they weren't very, and didn't have many people showing up. So I'm not working too much with people either looking to move into Harwich or in Harwich currently. I mean, if someone reaches out to me, of course, but just mainly focusing on getting some programs to help residents.
Residents looking to buy. Okay, I was just curious as to what the mix was.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
I think, Brianna, we've taken up enough of your time, and you will certainly be hearing from all of us or some of us down the road while we go through our process of developing the local comprehensive plan. So thank you for your time tonight.
Hey, thanks for having.
Yeah, sure.
Congrats on the marriage.
Thanks. Long overdue, but thanks.
Lock them in early.
Oh, they thought so too.
All right, let's stay on task. All right, agenda item D. We have Mr. Leo Kukunis here. And Leo, why don't you come on up to our table with the mic?
Come on down.
Come on down. So, for those of you who don't know Leo, I'm going to let Leo tell you about Leo.
Not too many faces, I don't think.
Yeah. But I think from,
I know.
from our committee's position, what we need to be hearing, amongst other things, with Mr. Kukunis and what he's about to tell us, is this really checks a lot of boxes under the scope of what we're charged to do. You'll hear open space, you'll hear land use, you'll hear education, you'll hear private-public partnership. If I'm wrong with some of this, I can guarantee you he'll
Spot
correct me.
on, sir.
Okay. And I think, I know there's a BOG, I know there's a request for a lease, I know there's the tech school. I know enough to get me in trouble, so I think I'm going to leave it to Mr. Kukunis to take us down the path so that we can understand better where he's been, where he is now, and where he would like to go. And then from our committee standpoint, let's think both at 30,000 feet and down on ground level, and see what parts of what he's going to inform us on fit into what our charge is. So, the floor is yours, Mr. Kukunis. Thank you for coming, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm going to start with saying probably I'm not in a very good mood. That's why I'm late, by the way, and this happens to work into perfectly what we're talking about. Every town on the Cape, and Harwich is probably high up in the list, number 1 and number 2, does a horrible job of maintaining what they call open space. We buy it at town meeting. I go to all the town meetings. I think I've missed 2 in 40 years. Everybody talks of how wonderful it is and how we need to buy this to preserve it, and then once the town buys it, they walk away from it. They just completely walk away from it. Not this town, every town. That's why, a little later on in my rant, I'll talk about a specific piece. But I first want you to know that there was a particular piece in the town of Harwich that I leased. I paid the town $1,000 a year to lease it. And basically, I maintained it. I put fences up and gates up to stop vehicles from going onto it. Kids with bonfires, dirt bikes, people dumping garbage on it. When that 10-year lease was up, this town decided in its infinite wisdom, they no longer wanted to be paid $1,000 a year to have someone maintain a piece of property for them. because there were members that felt that any town-owned piece of property should be allowed complete and unfettered access by overweight people and overweight dogs, and that there just should be no barring of people on land. It should be open. So, fast forward 5 years later, I just now had a meet with the police on that particular piece of property. Young kids with dirt bikes, destroying it, destroying natural habitat, and in the midst of building a bridge so they can ride their four-wheelers across the Herring River. We do a lousy job maintaining open space. We don't do the right thing for the environment, we don't do the right thing for the animals, for nature, and we don't do the right thing for the majority of the citizens in the town of Harwich. To please a few, so that they think they can just go and walk around anytime they want, we leave these places unfeathered, untethered, unwatched, and it opens it up to vandals, it opens it up to bonfires. We've all been kids. Not blaming them, I blame the parents. I recently had about $4,000 worth of damage done to a loader, a motorhome, and a van on my property by two young gentlemen on dirt bikes. Now granted, most of you probably have a, I don't know, 100-foot long driveway. It's your driveway, it's your property, right? My driveway happens to be 2,600 feet. I own it. It's fenced in. It's my driveway. My vehicles were registered, parked on that driveway. Oh, sure, down on the corner. Anyhow, people allowed access through the town's property that they no longer maintain. Young kids, next thing you know, they get bored. Next thing you know, Leo's got broken windows in his loader, his van, and his motorhome. As you can tell, I'm pretty upset, and I'm going to calm down a little bit because now I got some good news. For those of you that don't know, I have also leased a piece of property from the town of Harwich that contains 33 acres of land, 10 of which are forest, 20 of which are cranberry bogs. I'm sorry, 10 are cranberry bogs, and then the remaining is various uplands and roads that access and go around the cranberry bogs, flat upland. Some pasture, some grassland. Been farming that for 22 years now, under a lease with the town. I'm getting old. That's a good thing. My daughter wants nothing to do with Cape Cod, wants nothing to do with running a cranberry bog, and she's the only heir that I have. So my wife and I have discussed it, and we decided that in kind of a strange move, I want to do something that's going to be positive in perpetuity for this particular piece of property that I lease, and I am partners in with the town. And I know there's going to be some cranberry growers that aren't going to like the next statement, but I have to say it anyhow. There are no young people wanting to get into the cranberry business.
I know.
If a young person came to me and said they wanted to be a cranberry grower, I would first ask them to go get some psychiatric help. Right? There is no way to make a living in the cranberry business.
You tell them to move to Wisconsin.
They cannot make a living in the cranberry business as a small grower.
Right.
Wisconsin is run by large conglomerates.
Yep.
If you want to talk agriculture, I'll be more than happy to. We were the largest pig farm in New England for many years. We had 3,000 pigs. If you don't have 30,000 pigs today, you are not a pig farmer. And the same thing has happened with cranberry bogs. Wisconsin, a large 1,000-acre farms owned by large conglomerate companies. If you have 100 acres of cranberry bogs today, you're not making a living. I don't care. If you are, show me, because I've been doing it wrong for 22 years. Cannot be done. What it costs you to maintain it, inputs, and what you're getting for the end results, you're not going to make $100,000. And today, a young couple, you got to make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year just to live comfortably, pay the bills. You have to. You know what the cost of housing is, especially here on the Cape. So knowing that and feeling that, this particular piece of property that we're going to talk about was not going to be managed and made a living off of for an individual like it was for my wife and I for the last 22 years, I decided to come up with a creative idea. I want to create an agricultural education center. Now, you all, I know exactly what you're all thinking, because everybody thinks the same thing when I say that. Leo, you just said there's no money in cranberries. Why do you want to teach kids how to grow cranberries? It's not what I'm teaching them. This piece of property is ideal because in a cranberry bog, you have a controlled environment to the extent that you even control not only through sprinklers, the water that you're adding, but draining water on and off through the, putting water on and off, as you all know that happens during cranberry bogs. There is no better chalkboard to teach someone about the environment than a cranberry bog. Soil sample, tissue samples, root growth, how things migrate through soil, like fertilizers. Everybody's all upset saying that people shouldn't fertilize their lawns. You absolutely should fertilize your lawn. But you should know how much fertilizer your lawn needs and takes up. If it only needs a 10-pound bag, don't put a 50-pound bag on, because a 50-pound bag is going to migrate down into our drinking water. These are the things that I want to see taught at this agricultural education center. Also, with the tech school, we looked into nationally what are the jobs that are going to become available. Then we also focused that same program, it's a computer program, to locally. Veterinarians are going to be in need in the future. That's an up-and-coming and well-maintained job security, especially in Massachusetts. Tech school is going to have a veterinarian program. We're going to raise lamb and sheep. Now, when Leo raised lamb and sheep, Leo did it because he sold the meat, and that's how I made a living. Today, you cannot make a living raising 40 sheep. By the time you drive them to a USDA slaughterhouse, by the time you pay them, bring it back, and sell it off, you're getting $55 a pound for a piece of meat, and you're still not making money. Neither can you make money raising cattle. I raised up to 25 cows a year. Cannot do that anymore. Same thing with pigs. However, if 4 or 5 sheep, boy, you can teach kids a lot of stuff. You can teach them how to draw blood. You can teach them how to castrate animals. Taught my daughter that very young. That was the first thing she learned on the farm. Birthing, the whole cycle. The veterinarian part of it is endless. It doesn't have to be large animal vets, because everything that you're going to do with a small animal like sheep and goats and pigs also crosses over to dogs and cats, which we all know is where the money is in veterinarian. I mentioned earlier, and I said that Harwich is at the top of the list for doing the lousiest job on Cape Cod for taking care of open space. Well, you have 13 brothers and sisters here on Cape Cod. Every single town on the Cape does a horrible job with land maintenance. What a great situation. We teach our kids land maintenance. What do you do with an open piece of land? Do you go in and clear out dead trees? Do you plant different kinds of trees? Do you just block it off completely and not let anybody in it and not walk through it? I know that's not the right answer, believe me. Fires, it's endless. It's not good for the environment, it's not good for wildlife. So land management. That on top with the agricultural end of it as far as growing things, which again, cranberries would be on the list, but there would be other things too that the kids will be happy to enjoy. One of the programs that I want to introduce is growing Christmas trees. The reason why I want to grow Christmas trees is they have very little maintenance during the summer when the school's out. Your pruning, your harvesting, all takes place during the school year, and I thought it would be a fun thing. I don't want to get into specific things that we're doing there, but I'm just trying to give you a general idea. Now, unfortunately, many of you up there know town government, know state of Massachusetts. Some ungodly reason, when I
originally got the lease from this town in my RFP, and I didn't bring a copy of it, but one of the reasons why the town selected me over the other two individuals who bid on that piece of property is because I had an education component built in. And I am proud to tell you, in the last 23 years, my wife and I have fulfilled that obligation. We've had the tech school there. I would venture to say there's probably not too many young kids, well, today they'd probably be in their 20s and have kids of their own, who will not remember the time coming to my farm either as a school kid or just alone, you know, and coming and hanging out and learning things. So the town, however, feels that we may need some state action in order for the town to enter into what I'm hoping will be an intermunicipal agreement with the tech school. Now, the tech school I mentioned because I've been in negotiations with them for 5 years. This is not a new idea. I've been dreaming this for 5 years in anticipation of my retirement. The tech school will be the parent entity. However, Bridgewater State University is chomping at the bit to get involved. UMass Dartmouth has been to my farm already and is already involved in many things. Natural pollinators, for one. Everybody thinks that honeybees are the only thing that pollinates flowers. That's not true. There are hundreds of different kinds of insects that also pollinate. And these are the things that the college is already doing on my property. The University of Maryland has reached out to me, and they want to build a small laboratory on the property because they are doing a whole program on blood and looking at blood and blood clotting in animals, and eventually it's going to turn over into medical health for human beings. So I have endless people. The state of Massachusetts wants to get involved. I just had an email exchange with the water withdrawal people from the state. Very interested to get involved. This, if it comes to fruition, is going to, I believe, be a jewel of not only Harwich, but of Cape Cod. And the only thing I can ask for tonight is that you learn more about it, listen. There are going to be articles on town meeting floor. I put in 2 articles by petition. I will withdraw them if the articles by the selectmen cover what they want. Obviously, I didn't have enough faith in them that they were going to do it this May, and I'm getting old too fast. I can't wait another 5 years. This needs to be done relatively quickly. Property's located at 374 Main Street. If you want a tour and you want to talk to me privately about it, please call me. The chair has my contacts. I'll be more than happy to meet you over there. Do not enter the property without my knowledge. I will say that publicly, because people have already been over there and walking around. I lease it. It is mine. You have no right to walk around it unless I'm with you. So make sure you call me. Be like me coming into your living room. But I'll be happy to meet any of you there and let you see and discuss things. One other thing I think that we also talked about with the school is not only these high school students, we're looking at programs that are going to affect young adults and even middle-aged and older adults. Right now, in order to work even for a local company, some of these landscape companies, you have to get what's called a hydraulic license because this machinery is so, big now. I mean, it's no more pushing the little carts with throwing fertilizer down. And in order to get those hydraulic license, you have to take classes. So it's our intentions to also have classes for things like that, which adults will be able to take, or people who want to further their employment. I think it's a plus all the way around. I have not heard one negative response from anyone other than the things that I've pointed out. I am not planning to teach kids how to grow cranberries, number one. And the other negative thing, I think, is one cranberry grower was a little upset and felt that maybe somebody could run it as a cranberry bog, but I'll let him speak to that. But what we've done in this town with cranberry bogs alone is shameful. Absolutely shameful. I don't know how I can put this in any other way, except you have to think in your mind, what do you do for a living? And pretend for 1 minute that the town is buying up all kinds of businesses that you do. If you're a restaurateur, if you're a carpenter, and the town decides they're going to take over all the carpentry jobs in the town, or they're going to take over all the restaurants in the town, and basically shut their doors. That's what's happened with the cranberry business. Bank Street is owned by the Conservation Trust. It's deplorable. They have some grandioso idea, which I hope that the school and this project will be involved in returning it back to its natural state, not its untouched, man-made state. Entirely different. Cranberry bogs are man-made. If you want to turn them back to natural, you have to go in with a huge plan and revert all the rivers again and put all the soils back to the way they were. And I think that's what their plans are. And kudos to them. I think at this point, it's a great idea. They bought the one across from the tech school. Really? That was a beautiful operating cranberry bog. But they didn't want to see 6 big houses built there, so they bought the whole thing. Now that's going to go fallow and sit. The town owns not only the one I have, but they own the one behind my house, Great Swamps. They own the one down off of the Herring River. All have gone fallow. Not managed, gone fallow. So the only thing I'll say, and I'll say this for the record, they've already bought way too much open space in this town. We're already neglecting way too much open space in this town. And to sit back and allow this 33 acres to fall under that same, I don't know, road, to me would be shameful. You have an opportunity in front of you to support and to put together what I think is going to be once again, a jewel for not only the town, but all of Cape Cod, if not Massachusetts. And with that, I'll get off my soapbox.
Leo, thank you. Nobody puts it any more clearly than Leo Koukounis, that's for sure. And I think we all appreciate that. I do have a question regarding the fallow. So the bog that you are speaking of right now is still an active
Absolutely.
bog?
I am certified by the USDA as an organic grower, and I am absolutely, it is not a fallow bog, no matter what anyone tells you.
Can you tell us what happens if the bog becomes fallow? I remember,
Under the Wetland Protection Act, if you do not harvest cranberries, or I should say the law does not say how many cranberries you have to harvest. If you're not actively trying to harvest cranberry bog, and you allow it to just go back to its natural state, I believe it's after 3 years, you lose the agricultural exemptions.
and that means what?
That means that you cannot take a tractor and drive on the property again and mow it. You cannot mow the ditches. You cannot clean the ditches. Now, the mosquito control people have a state exemption where they can come in and open up ditches with machinery or by hand for the purposes of drainage and making sure that mosquitoes don't breed. However, a homeowner cannot do that. A homeowner, again, and there's hundreds of acres of fallow bogs here in Harwich.
Right.
I mean, I own probably 7 acres off of Forest Street. Hasn't been farmed in 40 years. You know, trees this big.
And 6 acres down by Red River Beach, and it's been
Yeah.
sitting there forever.
Yeah, so now, you know, you can't go out there and even, like I say, open the ditches up so that the mosquitoes will move. You have to get permits to do that. Where if it was still under agricultural exemption,
I
you
do
could.
worry that it's land that could do something better than sit there and just get junk in it all the time, you know, but.
Well, here's your opportunity to save another one.
Leo, first of all, thanks for sharing. Really appreciate the honesty. As a new family in town from 2019, my wife grew up in Sandwich, open space and utilization. We're big function over form people, right? So if it makes sense, it makes sense. What's been the pushback from the town? Just that they don't agree? Because it sounds like everybody's on board that you need on board, with the exception of maybe.
What's the pushback with this project?
Yeah.
Lawyers.
Typical.
Lawyers, should have never asked them.
Yeah. Ask for
I mean,
forgiveness.
you know, and again, if I didn't have to have the town involved,
Sure.
if this, because I have another 17 acres that's gonna go later.
Yeah.
That's gonna be in my estate, that's gonna go to the same, will be donated to the same project.
Yeah.
If that was the first one I was started, I could open the doors tomorrow. And I'd be happy to argue the best lawyers there are, because I've been in front of many court cases arguing agricultural usages. And you're not telling me that an agricultural use with an educational component does not fall under the reason why this town bought that piece of land.
Yep.
But I guess we're gonna have to go to town meeting and find out, you know? Because some are arguing that adding the education component changes the use of the property. And Massachusetts state law is pretty clear about that. Okay. So it's lawyers,
Anybody else?
simple answer.
Ed?
Well, you know, I mean, your project's great. Back in the state where I moved from, in Albany, California, I don't know, 400 yards down my block, across a major thoroughfare, was, I don't know, 80 acres of University of California experimental farmland.
Yeah,
They'd been there ever since they inherited it
sure.
from the Gill family, who left it to them.
We have that right here in Massachusetts. UMass Dartmouth has a farm that was given to them. So,
It provided absolutely fabulous experiences for the kids from the high school in our town
Yeah.
and the kids in the university.
Town of Sandwich, the capabilities over there. Nobody had to go to ask the state for permission.
Right.
Question, I'm
Sure.
the face you don't know, I'm the newbie. I think the vision sounds great. Now, I'm just trying to get a picture of it. You say you have 33 acres, 20 acres that's got cranberry bogs.
10 acres, Cranberry. I said 20, and I apologize, it was 10.
So will that, it's part of the vision, will that continue to have cranberry bogs?
Probably not all 10 of it.
Okay,
I think that I'll take a section, and then again, this is all gonna be in the planning. By the way, for the record too, the school and I have reached an agreement where if this does go through, I would be hired by the school for $1 a year. Please understand that. I don't want people thinking that Leo's making money. $1 a year to manage the property for them.
okay.
So yes, we will be looking at areas where we will be converting sections into probably Christmas trees first.
Right,
I think we're probably gonna have an area, because I've already started on my farm, I grow what's called indigenous grass. And believe it or not, it's very difficult for me to be able to tell you what grasses have been growing here on Cape Cod for 1,000 years. I can tell you what's growing here for 80 years,
right.
but none of that is indigenous.
Well, that's sort of where
So-
my question was, because you described a lot of different activities, and I was
Right.
just curious as to whether that was going to be taking over what is currently the cranberry bog.
Some of it.
Yeah, okay.
It's hard for me to
You're
tell
gonna-
you
Right,
amount.
so you're gonna reposition.
Right.
some.
Well, we'll just reuse areas. Some of the vines that are good and viable, we'll keep for the longest period of time. Some of the areas that I've already been mowing, because being organic, I don't care what anyone tells you, there is no good herbicide. There is no good organic weed killer. Now, you homeowners that gonna spray your front yard and kill the stuff between your stones, all the power to you. I'm talking about 10 acres of extremely aggressive, invasive plants. And I've tried it all. It doesn't work. From goats
Have you tried
on
the
up,
goats?
you know,
The goats didn't work?
doesn't work. So there are areas that have already been overgrown over the last 22 years because it's not cost-effective to tear out the bog and replant it. So those are the first areas that will just be mowed down and probably, like I said, transferred over to Christmas trees or ornamental grasses, things like that. Not to make money. See, that's, believe it or not, that's the key on how I got to this idea. All right? There's really no way for a person to make money in agriculture. And, all right, you know,
It's
again,
also
I'm talking
lessons.
100 grand a year. Today, you're gonna make 100 grand a year,
There's
forget it.
also lessons in agriculture.
This
Long
is
term.
different. When the school was gonna make some money, they're gonna bring back a little bit of money that's gonna help them with a little bit fewer expenses. But the key is the we're teaching people something. You know, and then again, it's donations, you know, when you have a nonprofit 501c3, which will be formed, that's gonna be working in conjunction with the school, they're gonna take donations, things like maybe a piece of equipment that Bobby Owl may not be using anymore. You know, say, hey, listen, you're doing the hydraulic things, take this piece of equipment. That's the kind of things that individual farmers can't get, so.
Leo, I don't want to take up too much more of your
No, no,
time.
it's
And
all
we
right.
as a committee have some other things to discuss. But I do want to ask, is there an opportunity for other towns and schools from other towns to be part of this? Or are you
Well,
looking?
The tech school already has, excuse me, I just want to make sure it's not the police,
Sounds like it would, it might be.
The tech school already has, you know, it's a, what do they call that? Regional high school. So
Oh, yeah,
their
right,
kids
right,
are,
right.
the children from the tech school are already regional.
Sure.
When you ask about other towns, the only immediate benefit I see from the other towns is they're gonna end up having a place where they're gonna have a whole kind of generation of people to maybe hire to do some of their forestry work, some of their maintenance on this,
Right.
On these open spaces.
Right.
I think for now, 33 acres is a big enough piece of parcel that will keep the school very busy.
Yeah.
Do the teachers and I, that when we discuss this, do we get enthusiastic and start really thinking, wow, this could go places? Absolutely.
I bet.
Absolutely.
I bet.
I mean, just the simple thing is even the Conservation Trust right here.
Sure.
I mean, they're talking about that complete renovation down there on Bank Street. If I can get this school up and running, I'll tell you right now, our school's gonna be over there. We're gonna be over there with the small excavators, we're gonna be teaching, why are we doing this? Why are we reverting this river? And hopefully, you know, of course, we won't be the general contractor, that has to be, you know, someone big, but the kids will be there. So sure, yeah, I see everybody benefiting
Thank you.
from it.
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah,
One,
last
yeah,
one.
sure.
You rattled off a whole slew of other people that are knocking on your door, and there's other dormant properties. Why aren't we not leveraging those other dormant properties as well? Once you get these things.
Wrong guy. That's all I can, that's all I'm gonna say. You're asking the wrong guy.
But Brian, to your point,
Be
I think,
calling the Conservation Commission in the morning though, so don't worry.
I think this is part of why I wanted to bring Leo in here, is to open our
That was the
vision a little bit. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Very good, great idea.
Anybody else?
Every piece of property in this town needs to have a property management plan. Every single piece of property needs to have a property management plan. Herring River has a cranberry bog on it. It's called the Herring River Bog. It has access down to the herring run. That management plan for this town is entirely different than Great Swamp's cranberry bog, which is out in the middle of the woods. Has absolutely no reason whatsoever a resident of this town needs to go out there. They don't need to be there.
Would you be willing
So-
to submit all the people that are calling your phone? So we can-
Call my phone for what?
I'm just, you said all the people that are calling, Bridgewater State.
Oh, no, that's all in, it'll all be in the plan that the town
So,
has.
so, Leo, you've got some articles for town meeting?
Yes, I wrote 2 articles for town meeting, yes, I did,
Okay,
and I put them in by petition.
okay, so, but the
You know
select
how hard it
board,
was for Leo to get 10 people to sign a document too? It's sad.
Should have just showed up here.
It was hard.
Knock it out.
It wasn't like the old days.
so the selectmen are doing their own articles?
Yes, I've been told that the selectmen were going to do their own articles.
Okay.
But
so
in-
it would be
again-
one or the other?
It'll be one or the other, we won't do both.
Okay,
I'm gonna go by the selectmen's lead.
okay,
If they feel that, you know, listen, we did this one because we want one of yours to pass,
right.
then I'll say, okay, I'm gonna withdraw the second one, you know, motion, definitely postpone the last one, or vice versa. I'm gonna go by whatever they wanna do.
Okay.
I only did it to show them that I was very serious and I need to move forward on this. You know, my lease right now, presently, the way it stands, runs out in November of 2024. So I got a little less than a year and 6 months. And it would be wonderful if we could just transition from the end of my lease right into the municipal agreement with the school. And so,
Leo, anybody else before I let Leo leave? No? Leo, thank you
No, thank
very
you.
much for coming in.
appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Alrighty.
And I'll give everybody your number so that they can call.
Absolutely. If you want to come and see it,
You really
come on
should see
down,
that, you should,
know.
if you haven't been out there, you should really go check it out. Yeah, it's
I
something
will
else.
tell you, I don't want to be mean, but the only reason why I said, please don't go out there without letting me know is because I had some people go out on the property and took pictures of 5-gallon pails that I had taken from a friend of mine who has a pool company. And of course, I washed them out, but on the 5-gallon pails, it said, I don't know, chlorine or something.
Chlorine. Of course it did.
And the next thing you know, I've been, called out for having hazardous
Hazardous
material on the
material.
farm.
Sure.
They didn't think to ask me, because I would have told them it was filled with fish emulsion. Because you buy fish emulsion in 275-gallon drums, and it's, pretty hard for me to tug those around, so I put in 5-gallon pails.
There you
Wash
go.
them out nice and clean, put in 5-gallon pails. So,
Thank you, Leo.
and that's it. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I'm gonna go out the way I came in.
Absolutely.
Let me know if they talk about me.
Okay.
You can watch it tomorrow. You'll know.
Jeff, before we
Yes.
get going, do we know who ES is?
I don't. I don't know who ES is. Does ES have anything to say? Unmute and add to the conversation?
Or identify yourself?
Or identify yourself?
They don't have to.
Okay, moving on. I think
Well, I
it's,
didn't know committee-wise if
yeah,
it was
I
one of-
thought it might have been Joyce.
That's why I
Under
didn't know
some
that too,
alias.
but-
Anyway,
She would have identified herself.
so I think it's pretty evident why I brought both people in. I think at this juncture, where we are at as a committee, gaining information, education, and understanding of our stakeholders and our town employee who has just recently become part of our system, I thought would be an important aspect to us gathering our information moving forward. So now we'll just open it up for discussion, and Dave's got a hand raised.
Well, I still think housing has to be our number one issue, but open space is pretty important. And there are very different views about what open space means.
Yeah.
And cranberry bogs are one part of open space, but there are many other parts and many other values to the people in this community. So I think, having given airtime to this view of open space, you need to balance that with some other presentations.
100%. 100%. And-
Margot could give you names of a lot of people.
Well-
I could give you a name of a few.
And this is exactly what tonight was all about. It's beginning to bring in people from all different aspects and all different viewpoints. Obviously, Leo's strong-willed and very, his candor is palpable. But at the end of the day, he's passionate and he's got a plan. And as I said from the very beginning, before either one of our guests spoke tonight, was to not get into the weeds of whether or not you support what they're doing or not support what they're doing, but just understand this is a resident of the town of Harwich, and this is not our local comprehensive plan, this is everyone's local comprehensive plan. And as long as we keep that, I think, and Joyce and I talked about this, so it's not gonna be new to her, but as long as we keep that in the forefront of our mind, that we're representing as many possible people as we can possibly, touch and talk to. And I just think it starts here tonight. If we had a 4-hour meeting, I'd have 2 other people right behind them. So I would urge the committee to make a list, submit some names. There is nobody that shouldn't be sitting in one of those chairs and speaking to us as a committee. So I think it was Bernadette said in the very beginning, maybe it wasn't you, Bernadette, but
Session, not us talking.
that's right. A listening session, and it's nice. We're all gonna go out and we're gonna meet our subcategories of residents. But it's really nice for all of us to hear one resident speak at the same time. So, is there any other discussion about anything tonight?
Jeff, one other
Yes.
thing, as a follow-up to that, is that we really don't have, I may be wrong, a set agenda the next 2 months, because we're not gonna have a consultant on board till June. I mean, so this is really, in my opinion, prime time if we could get other folks from other things to come in and talk to us in April and May perhaps.
Barbara, why do you think I did this? I
Yeah, I
had
know.
nothing
I'm
to
just
talk
saying is
about.
we got 2 whole months that we can listen to at least two other sets of folks
Absolutely.
each
So,
evening.
so please.
Do you have thoughts of?
I do, but this isn't, it's not all about me and my choices. I think we as a committee really have, we can cast a wide net. And we have so many, we run in so many different circles. I think it would be great if a committee member or two committee members could bring up some other people that I could contact. Bernadette?
I think, David, if I'm not mistaken, even like even part of open space can be considered our ball fields and our.
I assume so.
um,
I thought that's what
Rec
it was.
department kind of hits a couple of things for us in terms of the planning. And Michael Locken, the Harwich
HCT, yeah.
Conservation Trust.
The,
You know, they kind of have some similar and other things besides what Leo presented.
I've been looking for analogies as we're talking, and we shouldn't be either Fox News or MSNBC. My
Exactly.
reason for bringing that up is to say that what you set as your agenda, what you decide is newsworthy, can often steer a conversation, and that's something you also have to be careful of.
Yeah.
I think the counterpoint to tonight is probably more along the lines of a Michael Locke than it is along the lines of our recreation.
Only because myself, at one point, when I heard open space, always thought of conservation land and preserving. And it was brought to my attention, at least in terms of what the CPC is allowed to use money for. So real estate and open space is another committee in town that, sounds like it's an oxymoron, but it isn't. So that's why those were the things, and that I had that written down too.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, both of your points are so valid, because if you think about it, open space, everybody wants open space, we need open space. I mean, 20 years ago, we all thought we were going to hit build-out, and here we are still building. At some point between water, wastewater, et cetera, we are going to max out. So I think it's good timing we have the Leos, we have the Michael, at HCT, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's good timing to get different viewpoints, because if you think about the timing of our plan that we're gonna be putting together, and for everybody in Harwich, not just us, as you said, we're gonna be hitting some of these bumps sooner than later. I mean, housing is a big one right now. Open space is a big one too. There's things happening, and, like his talk about the banks, the bog across from the tech, is that, letting it go fallow may not be the right thing, but putting 5 houses in there, would that have been the right thing to do also? I don't know. So the town is always gonna have these issues that are gonna, point and counterpoint, as David said. So I think this is really good timing to bring a lot of this to fruition.
You just know what the plan is for that, though, because you have 3 years before it goes foul.
Yeah, but HCT bought it, so I don't know.
No, it's been fallow.
I
for a
believe it's
long,
already
long
there.
time.
I
Yeah.
thought that was harvested just a couple of years ago.
No,
a year
not,
ago.
not
Across from the school?
No, you're talking about the Jenkins bog. which
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
across-
Jenkins,
No,
yeah.
She was talking about, HCD did just buy that.
Right, that's what I mean.
Right,
But-
yeah, that's what I was talking about. No,
But
Bank
we were
Street's
talking
been,
about Bank Street.
Bank
Oh,
Street's
where they're gonna be
that's been
doing that.
15 years, yeah.
Almost trees growing up.
Margot?
What we might want to do, maybe even at the April meeting, would be to invite not just Mike, but maybe Amy Usowski and or the chairman of the Conservation Commission. And I would say Elaine from
Elaine Shovlin?
From the Real Estate and Open
Sure.
Space Committee.
Yeah, those are all good.
That would be a great slate if they were all available.
As just one example, Amy can tell you about the existing land management plans on every single major piece of property that the town currently owns. Now, whether those are working is another question.
Well,
And that's,
Yeah.
like many other things in this town, it comes down to manpower. I mean, it's just, how much resources do we have to apply to, you name the problem? And, I mean, we've and unable to even hire department heads, never mind go out and, manage land. So,
No, and
it's,
Those 40 people.
But
it's tricky.
And
And
now
that was
they,
my thought also, when he talked about, how badly all the towns, and we're right at the top in terms of not managing it. That was my first thought is, but it's also ironic then, so he was doing it for them and paying the town to do it, so why did they not want to release? As he said, it was because they got the lawyers involved.
If you do want to find out a little bit more about this, I'll try to get the exact date of the meeting where he presented. And I think it was like, it was in January, I believe. It
I
was,
was there that night, that's why I remember.
yeah, and it was a powerful night for the Board of Selectmen, to say the least. But, I do view everything that we will be doing as like one big giant puzzle.
Yeah.
And it all ends up affecting, open space, density, housing, wastewater. It all affects,
Years and eons ago, when the land bank came up,
Hmm.
and it sounds like a slam dunk, but see, then here's the irony. The more land you preserve, the higher the cost for what's left. And that's part also because people are still building. And
Except,
that's why the land that's available is now out of the reach of those of us.
there's so many threads here.
Yeah.
You can preserve all of that land, and probably 50% more, and still have a very different amount of housing based on how you handle the land that is
Oh,
developed.
right.
That's right.
No question.
There's
but
so
yeah.
many different ways to
But
go.
because it's still been like build the land, build, instead of, restore and rehab it. And like you say, if you're gonna build new and you have a smaller footprint to build on, you look at a different way of building. It's true.
Margot?
I sent Joyce a recent report that the Association to Preserve Cape Cod just published. It's called Hanging in the Balance. And it's looking basically at what's been done to protect open space Cape-wide
Oh, wow.
and what remains. And it talks about land use patterns and how we have some choices coming up about what are we gonna do with the land that's left? And they're basically making the case that we've already lost a lot of habitat for all kinds of different creatures. And that if we just continue to sprawl the way that we have in the past, that we're going to lose a whole lot more. And so they're making an argument basically for a whole different pattern of development. And Joyce said she was gonna send it out to everybody, but I'm guessing getting ready for Rwanda probably slipped her mind. I can send it to people if you'd like.
That'd be
I can send
great,
you the
yeah.
link, because it's a very interesting report.
Is
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great.
When they talked about building up,
It doesn't specifically discuss that, but higher density is definitely, part of the toolbox to try to protect land, but still create, housing opportunities and that kind of thing. So it's an interesting report. I think it's worth a read.
And
Well, it'd be
really, it's
great.
happening countrywide if you
Oh,
think about it. I
definitely.
mean, this has been going on for 10 years and, we're just still on the slow part. But, one other comment, Brian, your comment about, what are they doing about the other fallow fields, other fallow bogs? I've had to go back and forth to Hyannis 4 times in the last 3 days, and I've been taking 28 because 6 has been a zoo. I just don't understand when it comes to housing, there are so many houses and structures just on 28 from Yarmouth out here that are empty, that are X's. What do we do? I mean, why isn't that being explored for some of these housing situations? I just don't get that. Oh, we have to have new, we have to have this. It's like, my gosh, there are just so many opportunities out there for housing that, they're just,
Redevelopment should be a
Yeah,
major part of what we're
it
talking
is.
about here. Yeah.
I mean, tons.
are you talking about rehabilitating those houses?
I mean, those
Yeah,
old
I mean-
captain's houses,
Well,
Pardon?
the old captain's houses, that whole strip there.
Well,
I
no,
think you
not
mean
just
like
West Harwich.
Yarmouth.
I'm talking from Yarmouth
I know exactly where you mean, sure.
Pardon me?
I know exactly where you mean. There's a whole strip of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like,
bylaws and historic, probably.
Well, you know, but from a financial standpoint, you get into one of those old houses, it's filled with lead paint that you have to strip
That is
out.
part of why.
You have to, at a
but you know,
certain point.
everything can't be financial all the time. Otherwise, we
know.
will never gonna fix the problem.
I know, but if you,
But it is, because there are costs to doing
you know,
things, that's what he's
if
saying.
you, if you look at rehabbing a house that you could build for $200,000 and it's gonna cost you $600,000 to rehab it and bring it all up to code, it is financial.
Right,
I think it
my
would be fun
point
to.
is that
I've
there's,
been involved in a lot of projects where, you know, you just finally run the numbers and you just walk away from it
well,
because.
if you do that, then you might as well just level everything on the Cape when it comes to that. My point, though, is that there are empty properties sitting there, and old or new, my point is
Commercial
that
and residential.
there's opportunities for redevelopment in those areas, and not necessarily for, for commercial, but for housing opportunities also. I mean, you got the bus line, you got all sorts of,
That's
But a
what
lot-
happened with
but on the other
333
hand,
Main
what-
Street.
what-
That was supposed to be commercial.
Like I
Didn't
said,
fly.
you know, a lot of those derelict, empty, vacant houses offer a large opportunity for redevelopment and, you know, in the sort of, what you think of in redevelopment, you clear the land and start from fresh. And you could, you know, actually, in many of those cases, wind up being able to cite many more housing opportunities.
I'm not arguing that, Dick.
Yeah,
Ed.
yeah.
I'm saying, my point is, though, is that
being
there's
unused.
empty properties we need to be,
There's
people
multiple
need to
solutions.
be looking at, right, multi-uses.
I-
What we have to do is set our historic standards, so we decide what we can keep and what we're gonna get rid of.
Yeah.
We have to, set our density so that we can decide where we're gonna put the stuff and keep all the other land open. Then, once we get that solved, then we take the open space and decide how many cranberry bogs we're gonna allow and the environmental issues that go with that. Or find other ways to, now, letting it go fallow, if you choose that as your descriptor, or whether you leave it for habitat, there you've got two other ways of, so we just got about half a dozen things to solve, and then we're all set.
Strategic plan.
What's the problem?
October 24th
And it's-
meeting was the meeting that Leo,
Right.
It was October, it was that long ago, my
Yeah.
lord. I thought it was in January.
yeah, no.
Well, I,
also-
yeah, please, go ahead, Ed.
It's also not, you know, in areas like along 28 in Yarmouth, you know, I'm sitting here and within 100 yards of where we are right now, there is a tremendous opportunity to bring in some redevelopment into Harwich Center and utilize some land that essentially is considerably underutilized, just along Old Colony here. I mean, Wally Boyle used to do a great job of his garden on Old Colony, but he's been dead for 25 years, and, you know, it hasn't seen a garden in it, and it's just an overgrowth. Right next to it is the back part of Mr. Bradley's property. That whole swath in there, you could develop in maybe some nice historic-looking townhouses or something, bring in some additional traffic and residents into Harwich Center and help support some of the economy. I mean, that's the sort of, you know, future plan that opportunities I'd like to see looking for in Harwich.
So I think one of the main values of what you've done tonight, Jeff, is you've brought in a fairly controversial person who might not have been my choice to start this discussion, but I think we're getting a little more,
A little more breath.
yeah, a
But-
little
but-
more than we've had to this point, so that's all good. Now, any consultant that we hire is going to be able to identify the couple dozen main issues that 100 towns in Massachusetts and whoever knows how many are all fighting the same issues. We have to decide what themes we really want to focus on, bring them into Harwich, and we got 3
Absolutely.
years' worth of work.
Absolutely.
But, I think what's good about that presentation is it's not, I think to put it all in perspective, it's not the answer. It's going to be a plethora of point solutions that all come together. There's one very interesting creative that may actually put a little bit of a nice little mark on the town to have, one particular creative use of a particular acreage that brings a nice little reputation to the town. But it's part of a whole set of solutions that I think we're all talking about. So I think it's an interesting eye-opener to say it's a little bit of this, and it's a little bit of that, and it's a little bit of this, and it's it's
Sure.
not one thing.
And
Maybe
remem-
that's the best part about today's discussion.
Well, sure, and just remember, our job isn't to support or not support what he brought to the table. It's just to hear, we've got a long road ahead of us. And if the committee feels that inviting Mike, Amy, and Elaine to our next meeting
Yes.
is an appropriate, Shovelin, Real Estate and Open Space, who I met with a couple months ago and truly completely blown away by her. She's an absolute powerhouse, and glad to have her on my team, that's for sure. I'd first round draft choice all day long with her.
We need to have a reputation of listening.
Oh.
So the more people that we listen
The other,
to,
I think it really improves our credibility in addition to makes us smarter
Well,
if we do this. This is, I think we get payoffs from listening.
What was it? I had no idea any of this was going on. I mean,
Well, that's another reason, it's in front of our town right now. And I will say, I would suggest, but I'm not gonna die on the hill, that with Mike, Amy, and Elaine, those are three town-based individuals.
Right.
And not a resident stakeholder in something that we're discussing. So I would not have a problem bringing in Mike and Amy, but I would also like to bring in a resident who's maybe someone from the 204 Cultural Center who might have an opinion about developing the cultural aspect of that municipal building. Or if the committee wanted to, I guess, accept and adopt the suggestion of town side and resident stakeholder side, let's come up with a resident that we feel is going to give us some value and help us along our way. How do we feel about that?
that's fine.
Great. Who you got?
I don't, well,
Or a business owner in Harwichport?
backing up, the other sort of open space voice I think we should probably hear from is from the state. Hawksnest, they own a big chunk of land that just sort of sits there.
They do.
Where's this? At the
Hawksnest.
Sure.
What's referred to as
Yeah.
Hawksnest State Park.
Yeah, Hawksness State Park, yeah.
And find out what their long-range plan is.
I don't know if I'd start with that one, though.
No, but if you want to hear,
we can't affect that at all.
Yeah, we're local.
well,
But, yeah, I think,
but
there's
what we
actually-
do around their property, in terms of acquisition of open space, because we've done a lot of it
Isn't
around,
that what Michael is doing?
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's
Margot?
actually, there's an effort underway right now to get started on a management plan for what was the District of Critical Planning Concern
Yeah.
up around in
Yeah.
Hawks Nest. And there's actually going to be a presentation, the trust, the Conservation Trust is sponsoring this. And there's going to be a presentation at the community center on Saturday at 1 o'clock.
This Saturday?
This Saturday, and Carol Ridley.
Oh,
is
fantastic.
working on this, and
She's
she's
excellent.
going to give sort of an overview of that, so if anybody's interested, that's an
Great.
opportunity to
Thank you for sharing
hear
that.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that same, thing. $5 to go.
So do we have,
Is it really?
Bernadette?
I was just
Please.
thinking back to when we first started brainstorming, and I do think we've done a lot all by ourselves, like a rudderless little boat. I really do think we've come, given what we didn't have to work with, really a long way in a short time. But we talked at first about we should make sure that we did reach out to the other departments and all, which I think is what we're really kind of describing when we bring in those guys, if we could get them to come next month, which is fine. But then rather than trying to think of people to bring in, at some point, we gotta take the show on the road, and we're gonna have to go out there and have those listening
Yes,
tours.
this does
And
not
that
take the
will
place.
bring who wants to come
That's
and
right.
speak to us.
That's right.
We can't even begin, because all of us we only know who we know, we only hear what we hear or whatever. So even if we sat here, we couldn't even think of a good cross-section of people to ask to come in.
And hopefully we don't have to do this much longer.
No, but this serves that purpose of starting to touch base with
That's right.
the other departments. Maybe somebody from planning or ZBA is another
Yeah, sure.
one too.
And I think if the consultant's gonna land, what did we hear, June? Right? We've got
At the
3 more
earliest.
meetings, 3 more meetings, and it certainly doesn't have to take up as much time as it did tonight, but I like bringing, to David's point, the counterpoint, which is incredible and important, and that's where happens. But at the end, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
No, at the end of the day, I think we can put our heads together, and to your point though, Bernadette, this will not take the place of our going out to the community and really grabbing that buy-in that we're talking about, and making,
But it is doing part of what we also
It's-
said
it's a
to
start.
talk to the departments, which
Yeah.
puts me in mind of the fact that it says that the chairman of planning is going to be part of the
Mhm.
selection committee, and maybe that's another person who, if he had the time to come in and speak
Sure.
to us,
sure,
you know,
He's got a very good perspective too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we started with one perspective on open space, but then like we talk about, there's more layers and more, you know, concentric rings going out in terms of what open space is, and then that does start to touch on planning and vice versa.
of course. The only thing I'd say about Duncan, and I hope he hears this, is we would all have to dress a
I
lot
know.
better coming in here, because
Yeah,
he
'cause
put,
you
he
and I were at
just,
that meeting
I know, he put, I mean, 5-piece suit the other night, and I kind of felt a little inadequate. But,
Or just go the other way and just dress really well, because you can't compete.
I think Duncan's fabulous. But
Yeah, me too.
is there anything more that anybody would like to share? I think
Just
please.
one suggestion. If we think of this sort of topically, like this was an opening discussion of a very particular kind of open space discussion, and now we're talking about broadening that out a bit. I think it would be really helpful to have Dan Pelletier come in and talk to us about the wastewater plan.
That was my
Oh,
own
yeah.
thought, yeah.
So
Because that all-
that's a great.
That's really, that's.
So why don't we, if the chair, not chair, interim chair, but if the real chair, if you're listening, you're the real chair. If,
Oh, go for it, grab
all
some.
right, I'll take over, I'll just take over. I'd like to make a motion, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, no time. It's a coup.
Chair cannot make motions.
Yes, that's true, that's true. I'll,
Slide over here. You paid me.
so I would like to compile a list for April and May. We've got, April and May. So if the committee feels, Mike and Amy, Mike Locke and Amy Wazowski, and then we can kick around maybe another person. Doesn't have to be another person who's a resident. We might just sit still with Mike and Amy, and then for May, we would have Dan Pelletier. And I'd be happy to reach out,
Or we'd be
Or if we
interviewing.
get Dan.
oh, we'd be it would be after the interview, yeah, sure.
Well, if you have 3 people, you probably, half
That'll
hour,
take up
45
time.
minutes for an interview.
That's probably going to take.
Right.
the
Okay,
yeah.
Right, right.
I bet you it'll be,
Yeah, so I'll reach out to Mike and Amy tomorrow and let them know that we would love to put them on the agenda. And then by that time, the real chair will be back in her chair, and she will be able to decide maybe who we want to bring in for May.
Following up on Ed's reminder, somebody here has to be on that selection committee too.
Yeah.
So
And-
that has to be,
Sounds we have time.
Yeah.
We have a little time.
So, yes, and I think probably I'll bring that to Joyce. She may want to be there.
She has to be there,
well, she-
one person in addition to.
Oh, it's
In
one person
addition to
for
the
that,
chair.
for that
Either
initial
you or-
meeting?
Either
Right.
you or Joyce is on
No,
that.
on
No,
the
Joyce is on
selection
it.
committee.
The
Selection
selection
committee is-
committee, yes.
and
But
one other person, so
Yes.
that has to
Chair
be an
plus
agenda
one.
item.
Yep, that will be an agenda item, and I will run that through Joyce.
When does Joyce get back? Because isn't this in?
I think in 2 days.
but
I'm going to send her an email tonight.
that person probably needs to be picked soon though, right? Because
It looks like the schedule that we can make it till next meeting,
we could,
Yep.
okay.
or we could just barge ahead.
Well, we could barge ahead right now.
Your
No.
pre-bid meeting, I think you have to have those folks out as the
No, they invited everybody if you want to go to the
Everyone
anybody can
could
go
do
to the
that.
pre-bid.
Yeah,
It's
everyone to the
the
pre-bid that
team,
can make it.
the selection team, they'll be meeting to narrow the
In April.
list.
In April.
Right.
April,
Not till the end of April.
25th.
Right.
So we'll have had another meeting.
Got time, yeah.
Okay, so we have time
We have
for that.
another meeting. We have to decide.
Making the chair
Oh, I
nervous.
was going to say, just a radical thing, we're talking about open space. We might want to pick some developer and just hear the perspective of those who,
Davenport.
yeah, somebody who really wants to,
Great point, I'll let you reach out for that one.
do things, yeah, you do things that we don't
Great
want them to
point.
do.
Yeah,
But still, it's the
great
other
point.
side. And they all have opinions.
Oh, of course they do.
you know.
So with the committee's permission, I will reach out to Mike and Amy and talk to Joyce about Dan Pelletier for May.
We'll have to figure out, it makes sense just to look at the following May 9th, but because it's entangled with
Hmm.
the stuff that's going on with this timeline, I don't know if we
Yeah.
can say for certainty tonight that we should say May 9th. but-
All right, well, you know it can't be the second.
Working hypothesis.
Yeah, but hopefully by next meeting.
By next meeting, we
figure
should-
out if that's gonna be doable or if it has to be postponed or should be postponed because of what happens with
Because town meeting.
this.
For two good
Yeah, it
reasons.
just can't be the second.
That's right.
And
That's right.
we just didn't know that the timeline for this was gonna overlap with it.
We thought we'd be past it.
Well, Paul
Thank you,
didn't- he didn't think it was-
everybody, and I will
Motion to
entertain a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Paul did say that the first night he came in. that
Great.
he had-
Adjourned.
what was
Nice
probably
meeting.
his dishes.
Yeah, I gathered.
I'm going to get him to come over and walk